around 20 minutes. So if I see you all nodding off, I'll stop. Hopefully that won't happen. If you can't hear me, start waving. I think I can project, but if I'm not doing a good job, then let me know. We're going to start in the beginning, and then we're going to skip through a little bit. I would love to go back there and sneak into that house when no one's home. I'd walk upstairs and scrape little patches of paint from the walls to take a peek at what I know is underneath. I'm sure it's still there because we couldn't get it off. And believe me, we tried. Nina's writhing beast, Beth's spiral suns, Sheila's giant alphabet, and the geometric designs I copied from the notebook I hid under my mattress. None of it would budge. We thought Barb, the landlady, was going to kill us when we told her it wasn't coming off. She didn't. She had a better idea. Those watercolors turned out to be tougher than Pine Sol and Clorox, but they were no match for Sherwin-Williams. The house must have stood there when 11th Street was a lane through a cornfield, and our somber-suited grandfathers broke ground for the Mennonite College on the other side of town. Everything evolves. The field sprouted a Winnebago factory. The college built a theater and a science center. Our Mennonite grandfathers passed the torch to unruly girls like us, and the 2-story house split into sagging apartments. That place was heaven and hell wrapped into one burrito. Whoever added the stairway up to our door didn't bother to attach it to the siding, so it wobbled disastrously. Earwigs ran under the spoons when you opened the kitchen drawers, and the guys who lived there before us never once cleaned the bathroom. But we paid the deposit, and that made the apartment beautiful. That alone eclipsed the disrepair and the bugs. In the steaming summer of Indiana 1991, our sophomore year of college was over, and we were finally on our own. For the first time in our lives, no one would tell us what to do. 4 girls, 1 apartment, 4 months. I could feel my life waiting to leap into my arms. The higher the mercury climbed, the better it measured our fever. I refused to go home to the farm in Pennsylvania where I would have to obey my parents' rules all summer and pretend I still thought our Mennonite church ice cream socials were fun. No way. I was staying right here with my best friend Beth and the other 2 girls she picked to be our housemates. Beth had written me the semester before while I was in Costa Rica to say that she found the perfect housemates for us. Nina is so awesome, she wrote. She's an art major. She was in our art history class, remember? I had no idea who she was talking about. She wants to live with us. Yay! And Sheila Friesen. I don't think you know her that well. She's an elementary ed major, but you will love her. Remember the girl who got fined for falling in the fountain in front of the library? I heard about that, but I didn't remember who it was. That's Sheila. She is so funny. Beth was sure I knew them, and I was sure I didn't. It didn't matter. Whoever was good enough for Beth was good enough for me. As soon as I got settled, I would start feeling like my old self again. Of course. There was nothing wrong with me. Everything would be fine. I would smother my growing knot of sadness under a blanket of silence until it stopped kicking. It would, right? You can forget about something if you don't talk about it, can't you? If you have a secret and you keep it in your skin, inside your lips, then it doesn't exist in the world. It's only in your head, which doesn't count. All I needed was a little time. And some tequila wouldn't hurt. No matter what we did to those walls, they weren't going to get any worse. The kitchen wore a horrible coat of dark smudged yellow, and the rest of the rooms were shades of tired, grimy white. A decade of grubby college students can wreak havoc on a paint job. The more your Mennonite mom makes you clean the house so that you will know how to live decently when you leave home, the less you do it when that day comes. Beth said we should draw on the walls. I said we should not. Sheila said we should buy bleach. Nina said she had watercolors. We all looked at each other and hesitated. Watercolors? As in water soluble? As in we can wash this off later like nothing happened? A girl cannot be expected to resist that kind of temptation. We had the sense to call Barb, our eternally patient landlady, and ask her permission before we started painting. We promised watercolors would not do permanent damage. Barb said she didn't care what we did as long as we cleaned it all up before we moved out. The house wasn't hers anyway. She just managed it for a friend who was a missionary or something. Nina produced her precious paints and told us to be careful not to get any green in the yellow. This was no Crayola set of paints, and the brushes were so special they practically each had names. We promised not to mix the colors and to never leave the brushes drying upside down. Nina swirled her wet brush around in the purple and set about creating ghostly little wave spirits that walked mysteriously through the rooms. Beth unleashed colorful, exploding suns and lanky brown bodies that resembled her. Sheila said she can't paint to save her soul, and she got one of her anxiety attacks when we tried to encourage her. "No, you guys," she begged, starting to wheeze. "I'm not artistic like you are. I wish I was, but I'm not, okay? I just don't feel comfortable. I'm not good at things like you guys are." Then she had to rummage around her inhaler. I'm no artist either, but I love bright colors, so I painted my heart out. I warmed up with a few lopsided flowers here and there. Then I drew borders around the windows and doors, shaky replicas of the traditional designs I practiced painting on pottery in Costa Rica. I hoped that if I got used to looking at them, my eyes would stop prickling every time I opened that notebook, the one I kept pushed under my mattress. While I painted, I could see the pursed lips of the potter as he patiently drew on those pages for me, so that I would never forget. Then he spelled his name below. I felt the hot, windy shade of the porch and heard the palm leaves rustle beside the kitchen. Under his name, he wrote mine in small, perfect letters and traced a heart around the names. The cheesiest fourth grade thing you ever saw, but so completely sincere. A few days ago, it made a lump pop into my throat that I could hardly breathe around. There were no rules. You could paint anything you wanted, anytime you wanted. We kept the paints and brushes in a drawer of the giant desk so everyone could use them. Even Sheila finally got over herself and painted a huge row of ABCs in a circle around the living room. She said it was a practice run for her future kindergarten classroom. Later she added "Fizz World Sucks" and a stick figure on crooked gallows because of how much she hated that class. It didn't have to be pretty, and before long it wasn't. Somebody got black in the Pepto-Bismol pink, for one. Nina was so upset about that, she started crying and shut herself in the bathroom. All I can say is it wasn't me because I never used the black. I tried to paint the dancing bears, but they looked more like demon-possessed dolls. The more I tried to fix them, the worse they got. Nina's waste spirits became bigger and more tortured until the only place you could go to get away from them was Beth's in my bedroom. Bad words, tic-tac-toe games, hand smears, footprints, butt prints. Beth started painting beautiful, terrifying masks, one after the other, and quotes about oppressors from Bob Marley songs. Sheila began a life-size portrait in the hall beside her door, but we ran out of brown, and she couldn't think of what other color to be. So it stood there like half a ghost. The painting stopped being decoration and degenerated into desecration. A giant red vagina appeared in the bathroom, looking like a larger-than-life Venus flytrap. Then Nina painted the crowning glory of horrors in the kitchen, with the last that was left of the black and the red. Remember that story about the woman who goes insane in the upstairs room with the yellow wallpaper? Similarities exist. We weren't trapped by a lock like she was, but we were upstairs, struggling to get out in other ways. The crazier the walls got, the harder we tried. More? Here's some Mennonite history according to me. I had to study it in high school, and I got an A, so I used to know a lot more about it. This is what I've managed to remember. The Catholic Church had its panties in a twist, having lost a limb to the Reformation. The Protestant Church, all zealous and new, was on a roll, stamping out heresy wherever they smelled it. Nobody had a shred of patience for the blasphemy coming from a batch of rabble-rousers in Zurich. These troublemakers called themselves Anabaptists before their sect got named after Menno Simons, and their primary offense was the new ideas they preached about baptism. You might not think that's something to lose your head over, but Menno Simons and Conrad Revel did. Whereas everybody else was baptizing infants, the Anabaptists said that baptism should be a symbol of adult choice to follow Christ. They required a lifestyle of simplicity and rejected all forms of violence, even violence in self-defense. It seems innocuous to me. How dangerous is a group of people whose hallmark is they won't defend themselves? I guess you had to be there. It was a dreadful time to present a new idea about anything. The feuding Catholics and Protestants found one thing to agree on: get rid of those Mennonites. They arrested the Mennonite thinkers and hung them above the city in cages to die in public for being heretics. For generations, Mennonites were pursued. Their tongues were torn from their throats. They were hunted, threatened, chased, captured, tortured, burned at the stake, stretched to pieces, decapitated, drowned, or dragged to death behind horses. How's that for a children's story? The survivors scattered throughout Northern Europe, where foreign governments tolerated them, but let's not confuse that with hospitality. The opportunity to settle on another continent called the New World was the best news they ever heard. In the days when Pennsylvania was still a colony, a Mennonite man named Hans Brubaker purchased 1,000 acres of land from William Penn. He came to America on a ship with 300 other Swiss and German Mennonite immigrants, praying to find peace and a homeland. Hans cleared woodlands to create fields for planting. He married a woman named Anna. He built a house, a barn, a mill on the river for grinding grain. He fathered children who lived in his house and farmed his land, passing it on to their sons and their grandsons. The last one was my grandpa. I played on the stairs of his rambling farmhouse and took naps on the bed in my mother's childhood bedroom for 8 years until Grandpa sold the farm at public auction. The city, that was barely a town when Hans felled the first tree, opened its jaws on all sides and swallowed the farm whole. The mayor's office declared that the house and the barn should be a historical monument and wrote into law that nobody may change their exterior structure ever. This is where I come from. This is who I am, or who I was, or who I thought I was, or who I started out as. For sure, it's who I was supposed to be.
Very nice.
Got one more, and this is a little flash from the trip to Costa Rica. You'll see these in the book. I do not know how to eat the soup. An enormous bowl sets on the table in front of me with floating fist-sized potatoes, bristly chunks of meat, yuca, whole carrots, halved ears of corn, and a spoon. My mama Hilda smiles at me because she's pleased to have made me something special. Coma, she says. ¿No le gusta la sopa? I like soup, and I am hungry, but I don't know what to do. The soups that I am familiar with consist of small cut meat and vegetables, not these ingredients boiled whole. I look again, but she has not given me a knife. She stands smiling at me in confused expectation as I blink helplessly at my plate. I must find some words I can use in this language, and I have so few. No entiendo, I say. ¿Cómo? Ay, mamita, she says, through an accidental giggle, and asks me if I've never eaten soup before. Así, she says, and taking my spoon, she slices off a piece of potato and offers it to me as if I were a giant 20-year-old baby. I say, gracias. I take the spoon. Mama Hilda disappears into the kitchen and then joins me with a steaming bowl for herself. The delicious broth is scalding hot, and I spill it on the table as I chop at the carrot, and then at the corn with my dull utensil. No, no, she interrupts me. El maíz no. Ay, mamita, no sabe comer la sopa. And she giggles again. Mire, and she commands, and she dips her fingers into the boiling broth, fishes out the ear of corn, and bites the kernels from it in the way of every summer. Ya? She asks me, meaning do I need more help or do I get it now? Sí, I say, ya. Provecho. Gracias, igual. I know nothing. Not how to eat, not how to speak. All my life, I've heard people talk of being born again, and although this is not what they meant, I see this as its truer meaning. When we are finished, our faces shine with sweat and soup.
Yay.
Did you press record here or stop?
I think I stop now.
I can keep recording.